Okay, we're learning the Sikha of B'chukai Sayin Chelik Zayin. We are in the middle of the Sikha, Sivav, on page 193. Okay, so what's the Sikha discussing? It's discussing what it says in the Gemara that La'asad Lavai, the world will be Charov, which literally means that the world will be destroyed. And that's going to be in the Elef Hashvi, in the 7th millennium. And then there's a machlokes in the Gemara between, I believe it's Rava and Rav Ketina, whether this means, or maybe Abaya and Rav Ketina. What I never wrote before. Yeah, Abaya and Rav Ketina. Whether it's going to be Chad Charov, meaning 1,000 years the world will be destroyed, or Trei Charov, or the 7th and the 8th millennium the world will be destroyed. That's the machlokes. Yeah, last week we learned about this. And the Rebbe, okay, now I'm not going to go back exactly to the details that the Rebbe spoke about before. We'll get back to it afterwards. But before we learn the Sikha inside, I'd just like to talk a little bit about this concept of Chad Charov. If you look in Ha'ara 21 star, it's on the previous page. So the Rebbe is mitzayin to some Maimarim and Chassidus, which discuss this. You see, Be'inyin Charuv u'Pratav, Rei Teres Chaim, Eira Teire, the Shimus of the Tzemach Tzedek, and then a Maimer of the Rebbe Marash in Tafresh Chav Zayin. So I saw some of these Maimarim today, and what it says there is really fascinating. Okay, so first of all, regarding the meaning of Chad Charov, what does Chad Charov mean? What does it mean that it's going to be a period, 1,000 years, or 2,000 years, where the world is going to be destroyed? First of all, what does it mean destroyed? And second of all, if it means only 1,000 years or 2,000 years, so what's going to happen after that? It's going to happen by the 9th millennium. By the time, after that, the world won't be destroyed. Then it'll come back to the way the world exists today. What's going on here? Okay, so the point that the Rabbeim explained, it's Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Marash, and so on. They explain as follows: that the concept of Charov does not mean that the world is going to be destroyed. Rather, what it really, first of all, they base it on the Gemara. The Gemara actually speaks about this Chad Charov in Sanhedrin, and it says Chad Charov means is that the world is going to return sort of to the state of existence before Sheshis Yemei Breishis, but not exactly. It's going to, which means an absolute nothingness. Yeah. Right. So the Gemara clarifies what it means is the world is going to be similar to what it was on the first day of creation, where it was all water. Mayim b'mayim. All water. All water. Well, you know? Okay. Oh, very good. Big problem, right? What are we going to do? You can't swim. Okay, so first of all, what the Gemara is saying is that the mayim al yainim, mayim tachtainim are all going to be together. There won't be that separation. Then the Gemara says, what's going to be with the tzaddikim in the world? Which, let's assume it refers to all Yidden, va'amech kolam tzaddikim. Says the Gemara that the Eibusher will give wings to the tzaddikim, and they're going to be hovering above the waters.
They're going
to be hovering above the waters. That's what the Gemara says. That's the description of the Gemara regarding Chad Charov.
What about the promise that Hashem made to Noach?
What?
Is going to happen again?
No, this is not the world. The Chatchila exists for 6,000 years, and then comes Chad Charov. This is the Chatchila part of the plan. Chatchila part of the plan. Yeah. So the point that is explained in my Maimon regarding Chad Charov means that the world today exists from the Eibishter's Dibur, which is Chitzonius, and therefore the world exists in a Eifen that we see it as a Metzias. The concept of Chad Charov is that the Pnimius will be revealed, and there'll be no union of Chitzonius anymore, and therefore everything is going to be elevated and included in the Pnimius of the Eibishter. Charov means that the Gashmius, the Yeshus, the Metzias of the world, that it senses itself as a Metzias, that will cease to exist. The world will exist on a completely different level.
That has nothing to do with the
So in the Maimah there he says that when it speaks about the waters refers to Chachma. Maim is Chachma, and it's speaking about a very high level of Chachma that will be revealed in the world when the Maim al Yainim and Maim Tachtenim will come together. You have to have a very great level of revelation that's beyond any boundaries, that can bring together these two levels of the waters together, and that's what's going to be revealed, lost of loving. That's the concept of Chad Charov. And the tzaddikim that have the wings that are going to be floating or hovering above the water refers to the tzaddikim also, the neshamas of Yidden that are going to be connected to their source, Lamaila, on a very high level. That's going to be revealed in this time period of Chad Charov. I mean, there's much more arichas in the Maimarim, but that's in the Nekuda. Chad Charov doesn't just mean a time of desolate or destruction. The pnimius of creation is going to be revealed. But then it says in the Maimarim, I'll read you over here one little part of this. I made a picture of a Maimar of the Tzemach Tzedek.
How are we going to learn Torah?
Yeah, well, on a whole different level. But then after Aval, here, this is the Lashon that Tzemach Tzedek writes in the Maimah, Aval achakach yischadesh ha'olam kasherata. Then the world will come back into existence, whether after the 7th millennium or according to the other opinion, after the 8th millennium. The world will come back into existence. But the world that will exist after this Chad Charuv will be a different kind of world. This is where it says, in the Haftarah, we say it on Rosh Chodesh, Shamayim Chadoshim, Aretz Chadosha, new heaven, new earth. It's going to be Al Shaloi Yeh Ba'ofen Zeh Klal. It's not going to be like our world today. And then there'll be a Beis HaMikdash. V'lo yiyeh as chorban Beis HaMikdash, v'lo yiyeh tzares al Yisrael, ki'im kulei toiv. That's what the Tzemach Tzedek finishes the Maimer.
7th and 8th?
So the 7th and maybe 8th as well, these 2 millenniums are going to be Charuv, where the world will be absolute pneumius. But then the world is going to be renewed. Just like you have today, 7 days of the week. You have the 6 days of the weekday. And then comes Shabbos. So now, before we come to the Shleimus of Yom Shekuli Shabbos, which is Chad Charuv, we start over again Sunday. Because there's always another level, higher. But then when you come to Yom Shekuli Shabbos, the world comes to a level of Chad Charuv. And then after Shabbos, when you come to the 8th or 9th millennium after Shabbos, so then the world now exists in a whole different level of shleimus, of absolute goodness, with the Beis HaMikdash, with Yidden, with no tzaras. It's interesting how the Tzemach Tzedek finishes off the mind with this. That's going to be after Chad Charuv.
So the Mashiach is going to come, and we're going to go into this existence of almost non-existence.
In Chad Charuv, in the time period of Chad Charuv, correct. And then we'll return afterwards to the Aveda of the Beis HaMikdash and so on. This is, could be this other Hesbedim that it says, but this is in Chassidus, even in Chassidus itself. It could be this. I didn't see all the Maimonim that I was mitzayin to, but at least this is one of the Hesbedim that it says in Chassidus.
The concept of Chad Charuv was never brought up in terms of all the teachings of Moshiach that Rabbi Oster.
Not that often, but it is quoted. It is mentioned here. Here is one of the places where it's mentioned.
Everybody wants Mashiach, everyone's going to be the world, everyone's going to have chocolate on the trees and everything. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have Gilead Lakus, and then all of a sudden, the world gets put on the water. Instead, we're going to get under the water. Wow. Where did this come from?
No, so I'm explaining it. The water is another phase. It's another phase of it's just like similar to what it says regarding the Mabul. The Mabul wasn't just an Indian of a flood and to be destruction, right? Yeah. Even though it says Vatishaches and then the Abishah came and destroyed, but it was a mikveh. Right. So it's the same thing with the Chad Charuv. The Chad Charuv is not an Indian of to destroy the world. Adarabah, it's going to be a deeper level of revelation in the world that the Metzias will lose its. Will 2,000 years. According to one opinion. According to one opinion, 1,000 years. According to another opinion, 2,000 years.
You can't make it faster.
Yeah. Okay, so what the significance of 1,000 years or 2,000 years? Let's discuss it here now. That's in Sifov. Okay, so let's first introduce and explain this that's known as Yeda Elef Shana from the Shisal Vishnida Alma. Each one of the millenniums of the 6,000 years of the time when the world exists is a Bazunda and Hoge. So the Eibishter is conducting that millennium in a specific manner. Each one is separate. Now this is based on a Ramban. There's a long Ramban in Parshas Bereshis where he basically explains there that there's 6 days of creation, and by the Eibishter, each day is ke'elef shana. There's a lashon of the pasuk. Each. No. Right. Okay, thank you. So each day is 1,000 years. Each. No. Yeah. Okay. So each day is 1,000 years. So he goes on to explain over there how each one of the days of creation corresponds to each one of the millenniums. On the first day of creation, where what did you have on the first day of creation? He goes through it all, Barichas over there. So the first day was light. It was created. The first millennium, Adam Rishon. Adam Rishon existed in the first millennium, Be'ikr. He goes through each one of them, Bepratius. And then he says that, so therefore, that's what the Rebbe is basing this over here on, that the reason why each one of the 1,000 years is separate on Hage is because it's based on one of the days of creation. Just like in each day of creation, something else completely was created in that day, so too each one of the millenniums is totally different. Now Agam, as the Gemara, the Ramban is saying this, but the Gemara says something different. The Gemara tells the Shis Alfi Shnei in drei Sugim. The Gemara actually divides it into three categories. The Gemara says Shnei Alafim Toyu. There are 2,000 years that are called Toyu, which is a time of desolate, whatever, nothingness. Shnei Alafim Teira. Then there's another 2,000 years, which is the years of Teira, and Shnei Alafim Yemais HaMashiach. Then another 2,000 years, which are related to Yemais HaMashiach. Right, so this is what it says that Avram was born right before the Shnei Alafim Teira. Right, Matan Teira begins from the birth of Avram Avinu, but not right at the birth of Avram Avinu. A little bit after the birth of Avram Avinu, there are different stages when Hikeres Bayrai, according to one opinion, when it was 48 years old, and that's when the Shnei Alafim Teira begins. Right, and then the Shnei Alafim Yemais HaMashiach begins about 1,700 plus years ago. What time period was that? I don't know. Maybe that was a time when there was the Gili of the Zohar. I'm not sure what it's related to. Why here the Gemara says? I'm just trying to think why the Gemara is saying that that's the Zman of Yemais HaMashiach. But Shnei Alafim Yemais HaMashiach begins from that time period. Okay, so the Gemara divides the 6 millenniums into 3. The Ramban divides it into 6 based on the Sheshis and Bereshis. So the Rebbe says it's not a contradiction. It's das b'chlalis. The Gemara is speaking about these periods in more general terms. Aber b'pratius is jede 11 shana, each one of the 1,000 years, euch in jede eine von die Shnei Alafim Gufe, Toyu, Teira und Yemais HaMashiach, and the way the Gemara divides it, anders von dem zweiten 11 shana. Within this time period itself, each time period is different. It's a different anhage of 1,000 years. Was von dem is moving euch benegeya to the Trei Charov Ledas Abaye. According to Abaye, this time period of destruction, the 7th millennium and the 8th millennium, as Chachem Beide Alafim V'Zayin Charov, even though in both of these millenniums the world will be in that state of Charov, is aber the Elef HaShvi nit gleich zum Elef HaShmini. They're not the same. It's not a repetition, just like we find regarding each one of the Alafim of the year. It's not a repetition over here as well. Elef HaShvi and Elef HaShmini is not a repetition. So what is the Teichen? What's the inyan of having these 2 periods of 1,000 years? Okay, you're wondering about the 7th and 8th millennium. Why it takes the Eibusher so long? Why it has to be Charuf and why does it take the Eibusher so long to get it right when you get to all 6 millenniums? Why does it have to be first Shnei Alafim Toyu, then Shnei Alafim Teira, then Shnei Alafim Yemais HaMashiach? A ganze seder in a whole process until Mashiach finally comes. Because we're thinking about life and our experience of life where things just take time to develop, and the way history unfolds over years, it takes years and years for things to develop and change, right? But so by the Eibusher, though, every rega is totally meaningless. It's all the Eibusher can could do whatever he wants, but Allah B'Ritzayna is barach, that things should develop according to the Gedarim of Welt, and therefore there's
Right,
but even in Charov, which is Pnimius, you're right. Even in that time period, which is Charov, as I explained before, the Pnimius of the Eibusher, it's still going to be in a period of Zman. That aspect of existence of Zman, interestingly, will not be bottled. The world will be elevated to a different level, but it'll be 1,000 years. Okay, so what's the point of 1,000 or 2,000 years? So the Rebbe explains, based on this, we can say, as Rav Ketina on Abaye, the argument between Rav Ketina and Abaye, whether it'll be a period of 1,000 years or 2, the their argument is based on, and it's in accordance to the 2 opinions that we learned by Riches here in the Sikha, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. So again, what was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? The Rebbe brings in the beginning of the Sikha. Rabbi Yehuda says, when it says V'ishbati chai rom ha'aretz, what does that mean? Totally eradicated, right? And Rabbi Shimon says only mashbisan shaloi yizuka, that they're not going to be harmful. Right, that the teva will change. Correct. Now, loitas Rab Shimon, in Rab Shimon's opinion, as the pirish from v'ishbati chai rom ha'aretz is mashbisan shaloi yaziku. All it means is that they're not going to harm anybody. Und das ist die einzige Shvise, was wird sein la'asad lavai. That is the extent of the level of Shvise, of the world changing and the world's nature being changed, and the cessation of the nature of the world. That's how far it's going to go, not more than that. Which means as ständig that sein de Metzias von Chayes Reis. And in any time period, even throughout this time period of Chat Charov, ständig, the Rebbe says there will always be this existence of the wild beasts. But they will not harm anybody. is mistaber, so therefore it's logical to say, as is v'tzayin blois chat charuf. So therefore, this concept where nature of the world changes and the animals and everything that exists in the world is not harming anymore, that's going to be in 1 millennium, in the 7th millennium. Okay, now the Rebbe will learn soon the Ha'ara. The Rebbe will clarify that this chiddush that the Rebbe is saying here, that according to Rab Shimon, this is the shleimus, this is the highest level that the world will come to. That the Chayes Rois will exist, but they won't be mazik. Yeah, so there'll be a place for the animals too. So the world will also exist. No, this is what the Rebbe is saying here. Yeah. But what's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? As there's an endot sveit kufas kanal. The Rebbe proved before that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you must say that there are 2 time periods. Because on one hand, he's saying vishbati means that all wild beasts will be eradicated. On the other hand, there's a clear pasuk that says v'gar zevim keves, that the wolf will lie with the lamb. So in order to answer that contradiction, the Rebbe explained already that according to Rabbi Yehuda, there must be 2 periods. So free of it zayin v'gar zevim keves. As well as zayin chayis rois, there will be the wild beasts, nor lo yaziku, they won't harm anybody. And then in the 2nd time period when they will be totally removed from the world. So now, based on his opinion, hot an art zogin va'adarabes is mistaver. It's logical to say as is v'tzayin trecharov, that there will be 2 time periods in this time of destruction where the world will be elevated. In ersten elef v'tzayin decharov from the tzura. What aspect of the world will be sort of destroyed, meaning it'll lose its feeling of its entity, the way it exists. That's only regarding the form, whether regarding the behavior of animals in the world. They'll exist, but not harm anybody. Und in zweiten Aleph, then in the 8th millennium, Mavirim and Oilam. That's where Mavirim and Oilam will be fulfilled, which is already a whole different level of the world being elevated. Charuv. It's not just details. These are. I mean, there's a great significance in these 2 tkufis, different levels of the degree of to what extent, what level of giloy lakus, what level of pnimius of the Eibishter is revealed in the world. When you have a giloy lakus,
the goyim during this time.
But doesn't talk about the Goyim here. We learned already the sugya of Goyim Barichas. You remember the sichas we learned about the Goyim?
If animals can sit side by side and not hurt each other, guess what? Goyim can do it too.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe
that sichas, the Rebbe's maskana was that the Goyim are going to stay around too.
And not only they're going to stay around.
They're going to be margish, the whole Giloy and this. Yeah, they have a big chedushim. The Rebbe says about the Goyim. Yeah, we learned it. We learned all about Barichas. Correct. Okay, now let's see what the Rebbe says here. Bekitzer, the point is Chat Charov, Terech Charov. It's a question of what level of elevation is the world coming to. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the world is coming to a level where nature is going to change, but the animals remain. That's all in 1 millennium. But according to Rabbi Shimon, that there's 2 time periods, so that has to be over 2 millenniums. Okay, so now in Hara 25, the Rebbe clarifies, how do you know that according to Rabbi Shimon, it's going to be just in 1 millennium and it's not going to be even more? Maybe he also agrees that this that it says here in the Pasuk V'hishbati is just describing what's going to happen in the 1st millennium and in the 7th millennium, but maybe later he would agree that the world would go to a higher level. So the Rebbe says, no, V'ein loima shegam Rabbi Shimon svirelei she'achakach mavirim min olam. We can't say that even Rabbi Shimon would agree that there will be a time period where all wild beasts will be removed from the world. Regarding the translation of the word v'hishbati in the pasuk, it only means that their nature of harming will be changed, and the pasuk is talking about the 1st millennium, talking about the 7th millennium. So the Rebbe says you can't say that. And Lafi the Azal Shitase b'Pirish Shvisa, as the Rebbe Kanal B'fnim, we learned in Barichas in the Sikha that Reb Shimon holds Shvisa does not mean a full eradication. It just means that it's not going to function in the same way. So the Rebbe says this cannot be the case. Shahare Adarabah. If you look there in the Mefarshim of the Medrash or on the Teres Kainim itself, you'll see, what does it say there? Ladas Reb Shimon ho aliyah v'shvachi shel mokim hu b'zman sheyesh mazikim ve'ein mazikim. This itself is the greatest elevation. There's no other time period. When you'll have these wild beasts that are mazikim and they're not mazik. That's the shvach of the Eibishter. The shvach of the Eibishter is not expressed by the fact that it removes these mazikim completely, but by the fact that they are here and they're not mazik. That's the greatest aliyah. So there's no other time period. maybe in the Sprach of Chassidus, in the Metzias Gufa, that the Metzias Gufa is not that's the greatest Gilui Elokus, not to be bitla Metzias. Fakert the Metzias Gufa, there's an aspect of his hapche in this.
Okay. It's being Mavatul Dara.
Not only Mavatul, no, here we're talking about his hapche, that there's mazikim, but they're not mazik. Yeah. Okay, let's see one more order 27. So here the Rebbe addresses this, that he says inside the Sikha. Yeah, the Rebbe had he said that there's going to be these 2 time periods. Lahoima Yedua. So it's known as a tshuva from the Rashba, and then the Maimorim. Yeah, okay. And it's related to Horus later. Okay, back onto the next page. So the Rebbe says Shemispar Shiva, that it's all in the numbers. It's not in the number, the actual number of the millennium we're talking about hints to what we're talking about here. Shemispar Shiva, Ho B'chlal B'chines Shtalshalos, Shiva Simei HaHekev. As we know, the number 7, even though 7 is Shabbos, but still, it's the shleimus of existence, of creation. 8 is what's already higher, like by the bris, or in other cases where you see 8 is higher than a shtalshalos. Now, yumtak, mashabeis, inyanim elu, mashbisan shalayaziku, the 2 levels of charuv, whether it means that the nature of the world will totally change, or furthermore, umavirim min ha'olam, that they'll be totally removed from the world. It's going to be divided into 2 different millenniums. It can't be in the same time period. Why not? So you asked the question before, it can't be in the same millennium. So the answer is it's 2 completely different levels. What's the proof for this? Because when animals were created in the beginning of creation, they were created actually in a way that they were able to coexist with one another. Before Chatei Tzadas, so then in the Teva, where over there they were according to their nature, the way they were in the beginning of creation. Right. So the fact that the Eibusher changes the nature of the animals is not really changing their nature, really. It's just going back to the way they were at the beginning of creation. That's the shleimus of existence in the 7th millennium. Say the Shtalshalos. When the world totally changes, we're not bringing it back to the way it was in the beginning of creation. That's in the 8th millennium where there's an absolute change in the world. That's when the Eibusher eradicates all the wild beasts in the world. Those are the 2 time periods.
Okay. See the white?
Yeah. Yeah, and Chanami, interessant, yeah? Okay, so the Rebbe doesn't address that here. Maybe, I think maybe later in the Sikha, the Rebbe talks about that, yeah. That the first Indian has a Maila. Yeah. The fact that there are Mazikim, but they're not Mazik.
That's 7, not 8.
Yeah, correct. According to Rab Shimon, that's the Shleimus.
Yeah, but that's right. Once the Mazik cannot harm you, it's no longer a mazik.
Yeah.
It's call it whatever you say.
He's a mazik or he's not mazik.
That's it.
So yeah. Shalom Aleichem, lady.
No,
not lady. Sorry.